Where do I start? How about, there we go. Oh, we're talking about the loaves and fish. Matthew chapter 14. And as we talk about this, and all four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, record the feeding of the 5,000. And we say the feeding of the 5,000 with, it says, as you heard earlier, uh, men, 5,000 men, and then the women and children also. But it's a great multitude it is that you have this feeding of the 5,000. And we have this, I'm going to back up here. The church of the loaves and fish. And so much so that you have, as Jesus went around the Sea of Galilee, around this particular area, many times throughout, as history has gone on, men have erected churches over certain spots to say that this is where this happened. The loaves and fish. We know the loaves and fish happened. I don't know that it's happened at this particular place, but if you can go over to Israel, you can go and you can visit the church of the loaves and fishes. And in there, in the building of the church of the loaves and fish, they have the loaves and fish represented here. And if you see under the table, you'll see a rock. And they say, that's the rock. That's the rock. Jesus laid out the loaves and fish and blessed them. Well, I don't know if that's the rock. I don't know if he laid them on the rock and blessed them. The Bible doesn't say that. Tradition says that. Tradition says this is the stone. This is the place. We commemorate that. Remember this. We'll place a table there. And we'll build a church around it. And this is where Jesus performed this miracle. I don't know if that's the rock. I don't know if that's the place. But I do know there is a place right there pretty close where Jesus performed this miracle. It happened. Historians have found out one way or another to say that this didn't happen. I'm not going to go through that. I'm just going to say the Bible says it happened. That's what I believe. I believe it happened. I believe there were a multitude of people that came around and listening to Jesus. Now we're in the ministry of Jesus' life where the multitudes are going to fade out. He's going to get a little more specific about what it means to take up your cross and follow me. And so we're into about a year and a half, maybe toward the second year of his 3-year ministry. He's had a year of popularity. Multitudes of people have followed him. He has healed multitudes of people. As he would go from place to place, even here it says he crossed over the sea, and then you have a multitude, 5,000, over 5,000 people coming. That's great word of mouth. As Jesus is and where he is, multitude of people followed him. John would even say, after the feeding of the 5,000, they would have taken him to make him king. After all, that's why Jesus came, to be king. The Messiah came to be king. The Anointed One came to be king. And the people were going to make him a physical king, and he rejected that. And so as you talk about the loaves and fishes, and I wanted this particular, you see, as we stand at the edge of kind of the porch area, and you can see across the Sea of Galilee. Now, we're going to talk about next week, we're going to talk about the disciples went to the other side. Well, you can see the other side. It's about 5 miles to the other side. You can see that. It's not like, well, you read about one time in the Sea of Galilee, he saw them as he walks on the water, and they're rowing during the storm, and he sees them. Well, I don't think it's a supernatural thing that he saw them. You can see all the way across the other side. When Jesus talks in Matthew chapter 5, he's around this particular area when he gave the Beatitudes. When he's talked about not hiding your light under a bushel, he said a light in a city is seen. Well, you can see across the Sea of Galilee at night. You can see the city lit up. It's not that far across. It's not a vast sea, a large sea with the Sea of Galilee. But you can see across through there. And it's about 5 or 6 miles to about 12 or 13 miles is the Sea of Galilee. And so relatively, we may even say a lake, with that, even a small lake in particular. And so we have much larger lakes here in Arkansas than the Sea of Galilee. And so it's a vital area, an area well used by the people. Fishermen were there, and Peter, Andrew, James, and John were fishermen. And so we have the time of the loaves and fishes. As we read this, and then we know the story, Jesus crossed over to this side. He began preaching and teaching. A multitude of people were there. And a situation comes up. What are we going to do? The people are hungry. If you read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, you can get more added to it than what just Matthew says. That Jesus begins to ask, well, what do we have? And I believe it's the book of John asked them, but Jesus knew what he was going to do. But he just asked their opinion. What can we do? He knew what he was going to do. But he asked them anyway. They say they began searching out and find out a young lad had his lunch there. Some loaves and fish. I don't think he had planned to feed the multitude with that loaves of fish. Never even thought about that. I've got mine. I came prepared. There's a whole other lesson about being prepared. The young lad was prepared, I believe, because he had a mama. And she said, you're going to take your lunch if you're going to go out there. I know that preacher. He's going to preach a long time. You take your lunch. So he had his lunch. What do we have? We just have a little bit. And Jesus said, bring it to me. And he took that little bit, and he blessed it, and they began passing out the baskets. So much so that everybody was filled. So much so not only was everybody filled, but they took up extra also. 12 baskets extra. I believe a basket for each of the 12. Makes sense on that. John also talks about that it's nearing the Passover time. And so they are up in Galilee. They have to go down to Jerusalem for the Passover and preparing for the Passover. And what was the Passover about? It was about coming out of Egypt, coming out of slavery, going toward the promised land. And what happens during the journey? They began to want food and water and for God to sustain them. And God does sustain them in the wilderness and in the wanderings there. And so I think there are 3 particular lessons we can learn. Number 1, God is a good provider. He didn't give just enough to feed them, to barely feed them. When God gives and when God blesses, is always more than enough. God is a good provider, and God makes the impossible possible. It is not possible for us. Jesus asked, well, what do we have? And they said, well, it would take a year's wages for us to feed the people. If we could run down to the convenience store and get something or wherever. So it's not possible. And Jesus makes the impossible possible. Number 3, God uses us to bless others. I think that's a great lesson with these. Let's look at these. Number 1, God is a good provider. In Psalm 78, it talks about when the children of Israel left Egypt and they're out in the wilderness and they're wandering, and you go to Psalm 78, I just put verse 18 through 20, but there's several more verses with this. And so this is familiar with the people. These are Jews who are sitting down to be fed. They tested God. Those who came out of Egypt, those who were in the wandering, they tested God in their heart by demanding food they craved or they lusted after, as King James says. They spoke against God, and they said this, can God prepare a table in the wilderness? That's a great question, isn't it? How can God feed us? We're out here. We are a multitude of people. We are wondering. We have nothing. Is God going? Can God prepare a table out in the middle of nowhere? Can God feed us? Can God sustain us? I know He struck the rock and water gushed out, but can He also give us bread? What is it that God cannot do? They were testing God. They didn't believe God would take care of them. They thought that God would just lead them out in this wilderness to die. And that's what they said to Moses. Why has God led us out in this wilderness to die? Well, we wish that we were back in Egypt. Oh, how quickly we give up on God. Can God prepare a table before? And I'm thinking about it in Matthew 14. Couldn't God just rain down manna from heaven like He did here with the children of Israel? Well, we're all hungry. Okay, y'all, let's have a prayer. Let's bow our heads. Get ready, because food is going to fall down from heaven. Whew, wouldn't that have been wonderful? I don't know if it had been any more wonderful than Jesus taking the loaves and fishes and say, this is what we have. Y'all get ready to eat. And everybody looking at that saying, nah, I think he's lost his mind. That's going to feed us. Can God provide for us? God is a good provider. Whatever it is. All the blessings that we enjoy, God is a good provider. He saves us. He doesn't just barely save us. He saves us to the uttermost, completely and wholly. Whenever He blesses us to the uttermost with our blessings. He doesn't say, now listen, now Jerry Lee, I've answered your prayers for a few times, and I think I've answered enough. I think I've blessed you enough, and so I'm going to stop it for a while. No, He doesn't say that. God is a good provider. He takes care of us abundantly, more than we could ask or think. And so it is as God provides for us. As He provided with the children of Israel whenever they were out in the wandering, when they were leaning on God to sustain them out in a desolate place, it says in Matthew. Where can we go? Who can we turn to? But God. And God provided. Number two, as we see this, God makes the impossible possible. They didn't have anything. They knew they didn't have it. They were lacking. And yet God makes the impossible possible. Ephesians 3 verse 20, now unto Him that is able to do exceeding abundantly above all that we ask or think. Can you imagine what this scripture is? Do you really believe this? It's in the Bible. Do you really believe it? Able to exceeding abundantly above all that we ask or think. We can't even fathom what God can do. The 5,000 were there. They didn't even fathom what God could do with a few loaves and fish. They weren't thinking, well, God's going to multiply this. They didn't know what was going to happen. To say, according to the power that worketh in us, not just according to the power that He had 2,000 years ago or 4,000 years ago when He set them free from Egypt. He's talking about us now. According to the power that worketh in us, He's able to do exceeding abundantly above all that we ask or think. Jesus asked, well, what do we have? Well, we don't have much. We just got a few loaves and fish. That's all we have. And Jesus said, that's enough. All through the reading of the Bible, we find this. A young boy named David came to take some food to his brothers in the army. And Goliath comes out and challenges the children of Israel. And David said, I think I'll take care of that giant. He said, well, what do you have? I don't have a sword. I don't have a shield. I don't have armor. We can go holding on about what we don't have. Well, we don't have this. We don't have that. And God says, well, what do you have? David says, I got a slingshot. And I went out into the creek and I found me a stone. 5 stones he took, right? I've got a slingshot and a stone. And God. God makes the impossible possible. We can go through story after story in the Bible where God has made the impossible possible, where it says, what do you have? I don't have anything but a stone. We don't have anything but a few loaves and fish. We don't have anything but each other and a God that provides abundantly. What can we do? What can we do? What's possible here at Hampton? What's possible beyond even fathoming what we can even think about? Can we fill the building? Well, I don't know. With what we have, what we're working with, I don't know if we can. I know we can. Can we go out and evangelize? I don't know. I don't have this or I don't have that. But you and God make a majority, and you can win. A little bit will go a long way with God. Unto him that is able to do exceeding abundantly above what we ask or think. Isn't that wonderful? Well, what do you think? What do you pray for? What are your goals? God's able to provide abundantly more than we ask. He makes the impossible possible. And then God uses us to bless others. It was that God took this little boy that just had a lunch for him, and he fed everyone. I thought about this in 2 Kings chapter 7, and you can read throughout chapter 7. Samaria was surrounded by the Syrian army, and that's the way that they captured cities. They didn't go head to head. You see it in a lot of movies that they fight the battle, they shoot up arrows, and they batter the wall and send in everything, and you lose a lot of lives like that. And so what would happen, that they would just surround the city, and eventually the city is going to run out of food. And that's what happened with Samaria. The Syrian army had surrounded them and had been encamped around so long that they were running out of food, and there was a famine in the city, and there were 4 lepers outside the city gates, and they said, well, what are we going to do? If we go back into the city, there's a famine there, we're going to die. If we go to the Syrian army and say, hey, we surrender, we want to be captives, they may kill us and we'll die anyway. But maybe they'll take us prisoners and maybe they'll feed us. And so they were forward. They said, well, if we sit here, we're going to die. If we go back into the city, we're going to die. If we go to the Syrian camp, we may die, but there's a chance. We may live. And so let's go. If they save us alive, we shall live. If they kill us, we'll die, but we're going to die anyway if we sit here or go back to the city. They went to the Syrian camp. When they found it empty. That night, God had caused this a noise to be about, that they thought that they were surrounded, and they all just got up and fled and left everything. There was food and gold and clothes, and these 4 just went around just having a feast for themselves with all the treasure they had. And they began to think among themselves that this is not good that we keep this to ourselves. We've got a city back that's in famine, and we've got all this food. They went back to the king. The king sent out chariots, and And they brought that back to the city. God uses us to bless others. A vessel for blessing. That little boy, we don't even know his name. Just a little lad, that's all the Bible says. Someone who you wouldn't pick out to be the champion, to save the day, to feed the people. But God uses him. Not only to feed himself, but to feed others. God uses us. In the book of Philippians, it says, look not every man on his own things, but every man on the things of others. He's saying, don't put yourself first. Now you take care of yourself, and you take care of others also. And that's Christianity. It's not being consumed with, I'm all right, you're on your own. God blesses you to bless others. What can I do? Well, just start asking God, what can I do? Can I make a visit? Can I say a prayer? Can I bring a little gift? Can I encourage with an encouraging word? Can I just start thinking about what can I do? Start thinking about others. Put others first. Not yourself. Pray, pray, pray. In the book of Acts, when the church just began, 3,000 responded. Great beginning with the church. But a lot of those who were there in Jerusalem had come from other cities and had come because of the Passover or the feast. It wasn't Passover yet. Well, it was, wasn't it? But when the church began, it was later. And all that things were common and had all things together. They sold their possessions and divided it as every man had need. Had a lot of visitors from out of town. What they brought was gone. So the church provided. God uses us to bless others. I think those three things as we talk about from the feeding of the 5,000. What can we do? We're not going to feed 5,000. We're not out there at the feet of Jesus. We're not at the Sea of Galilee. What do you have? Do what you can, where you are, with what you have. We can go on and on about what we don't have, what we can't do. But do what you can, where you are, with what you have. If there's anything that we can do to help you and encourage you in living the Christian life and going to heaven together, and that as we encourage one another and help one another walk the Christian walk, if there's any way that we can help you, won't you let us know? Won't you come right now while we stand and while we sing?